What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 4 of the Nutrient Health Project podcast. My name is Andy Frisch, and I figure I'll do a brief intro for these first few kind of episodes as this podcast is getting going, just in case anybody is new to the channel, in case anybody is new to me, and trying to kind of explain what we're doing here. So I am a personal trainer and nutrition coach of over 10 years. I've helped dozens of people lose, large amounts of weight, 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds plus. My wife, Holly Frisch, who is actually going to be on an upcoming episode when we discuss our origin story and how we met and give you all the romantic details. She lost over 90 pounds in our first 9 months together. And I enjoy helping people live a healthier life. So what you can expect from this podcast is basically, I enjoy taking things that are complex, things that most people either don't have the time or the interest to go down, Google and YouTube rabbit holes on, the finer points of nutrition, the finer points of supplements, when to take what, does this thing interact well with that, different dietary styles, intermittent fasting, different training styles, different lifestyle things. And my goal is to make those complex areas more easily digestible, pun slightly intended. I probably made that joke on one of the last episodes, so forgive me, I'm a little bit of a ham, but I want to make these things accessible because I see way too many people in the fitness industry, number one, being taken advantage of with fad diets and fad systems and things that promise dramatic results in too quick of an amount of time. And I see way too many people giving their best attempts, giving their best efforts, trying their best, which you'll understand why I'm saying that with this podcast, and still falling short. So with all of that, let me put my face down here in the corner for the visuals, and we will get this podcast episode underway. So episode 4 is all about trying. And the title of it is Try is a 4-letter word. Obviously, there's some sarcasm in that, but I think it's very fitting. And I'm saying try is a 4-letter word because it's one of those things that I've noticed more and more and more when I or a client or a loved one says anything to the regards of like, I'm trying to ... then they're not doing it. And I've made a couple Facebook posts kind of talking about, trying. If you're trying to do something, it's literally the equivalent to not doing it, right? So the subtitle of this, again, try is a 4-letter word. The subtitle to this episode is Action versus Inaction. Let's get into this. If you're watching the YouTube video of this, you'll see a picture of Yoda, probably one of my favorite inanimate objects in a movie ever. I've had clients in the past call me Master Yoda. I think that is not earned, but I appreciate it. But if you are a fan of Star Wars, then if I say something about try, there's, any Star Wars fans listening to this right now is saying, do or do not, there is no try. And actually the full quote is no, try not, do or do not, there is no try. And I would actually add on to Yoda's thing just a little bit. And I would say try is actually equal to not doing. So if you're trying to do something, by the very definition of trying to do it, you're not doing it, right? Doing is actually taking action. So this comes from clients and just people in general, right? You'll see people on, it's one of those things where as you become more conscious of it, you start to notice it more and more. It's kind of like when you want to go buy that car, or if you buy a new car and now all of a sudden, like, all you see is that new car everywhere. When you become aware of the insidious nature of trying to, you'll see it pop up more and more and more in your life. So what I hear from clients and what I'll see from people on social media or just from people in my life is they'll say, like, I'm trying to follow this diet. Well, if you're trying to follow the diet, then again, by definition, you're not following the diet. You're trying to, right? You're not just doing it. So what I mean by that is, for example, yesterday, my day, it was a standard day, but like a super busy day where I was basically training clients. In between training clients, I had to go, do normal human being stuff, go cash checks, pay bills, like fill up our water containers, buy groceries, cook groceries, and do all of this stuff. And because I knew I wasn't going to get home until it would be almost too late for me to eat my last meal, I ended up getting my last meal at like 10:40 a.m. yesterday, right? So I ate from like 6:30 or something until like 10:40 yesterday. Now, I'm not saying that that's an ideal diet for anybody. I've been doing fasting long enough to where like I could do that. And yes, by like 4 o'clock yesterday, I was kind of starting to get hungry and I was thinking about eating, but I ended up just going for my second workout with Holly, coming home, getting a shower and stretching and go to bed. The reason I'm saying all of this is because I wasn't trying to stop eating at 10:40 and I wasn't trying to make it the rest of the day. Like, and I just did it, right? I ate my last meal at 10:40. I hit my 2,000 calories, which is still a little low for me, like full disclosure. But I mean, I felt good. I hit my numbers. But later in the day, around that 3:30, 4 o'clock, where I wasn't even really like physically hungry, my stomach wasn't telling me I was hungry. My brain was telling me I was hungry. Then I was trying not to eat. And that's where things got a little difficult. And that's where like I was during our walk, I'm trying to not think about eating, right? So as I'm going through the walk, what am I doing? I'm sitting there thinking about fucking eating, right? So my point with that is at some point, I finally just said, it's not an option. Stop trying to think about it and just focus on what you're going to do now, which was enjoy the walk with my wife, enjoy that quality time, come home, take a shower, do our stretches, maybe listen to a little bit of a podcast, read for a little bit, and go to bed. And I was lights out like 8 o'clock, slept like a baby, and woke up and had a great workout this morning. And then, like I said, I ended up breaking the fast. I think it was like 20 hours and 14 minutes after a brutal workout session. Thank you, Coach Alan Wise, for that. So I wasn't trying to follow the diet. I just did. Other people will say, like, I'm trying to stay on track, right? What does that even mean? I'm trying to stay on track. You're either staying on track or you're not. Trying to stay on track is like, well, is there an alternative? If you're just staying on track, you're not thinking about like, well, am I or am I not? If you're saying I'm trying to stay on track, then it's kind of like you're leaving that door open. Even if it's just a sliver, you're leaving that door open for like, oh, I didn't stay on track. Dang it. I tried, but I didn't make it. When it's like, instead, if you just say like, no, motherfucker, I'm staying on track. Like there's no options to it. So it's that trying to, right? If you're having a party game while you're watching this episode, I dare you to take a shot every time I say try on this episode. So, and I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Be sober. So the last thing is like, if you are someone who says like, I'm trying to stop whatever it might be, X, Y, Z. I'm trying to stop smoking. I'm trying to stop eating junk food. I'm trying to stop drinking. I'm trying to stop talking negative about people, whatever the thing might be. I'm trying to stop doing X, Y, Z. There's an analogy that I've used in the past, and it's a little extreme, but anytime somebody says this, I've brought this up, and it usually gets a pretty good response, like, well, that's a really good point. And the analogy is this. Imagine someone knocks on your door right now. Okay, so think about the thing that you're trying to stop doing, whatever it is, right? I've mentioned a couple examples, but whatever the thing is that you're trying to stop, think about that and have it in your mind, and think about how you're trying to stop doing that thing. Now, imagine somebody knocks on the door and you go to open the door and they say, hey, I got this crack. You want to smoke this crack with me? You're not going to, and again, I know it's extreme, but like, you're not going to try to not smoke crack with that person, right? And God, if anybody is listening to this and they've overcome crack or any hard drugs in any way, shape, and form, the utmost respect for you. And I hope this isn't any triggering sentences for anybody out there, but my apologies if it is. But generally, if someone knocks on the door and says, hey, I got this crack, do you want to smoke it with me? You're not going to like try not to. It's just like, nope, I'm cool. Thanks, bro. Like, and that's it. Right. So it's that same principle of like, whatever the thing is that I just asked you to think about that you're trying to stop doing, think about it in an extreme example, right? Whatever that extreme example is. For me, it's, somebody knocking on my door with some crack, which thankfully has never happened, but it's that extreme level because it's not even an option. Like the door for me potentially smoking crack with a random stranger on my front door, that door is shut, bolted shut, and like welded shut. Like there's no sliver of a chance of me trying to not do it. I just don't do it, right? There's no option. So So this all kind of comes around like the central theme of like those who do, who don't even think about try, those who do the thing will succeed because you're by definition doing the damn thing. And in order to do anything, and I've mentioned this in the past in other episodes, like if you're trying to lose 50 pounds, you're probably, it's going to be a lot harder. Whereas if you're going to lose 50 pounds, you need to lose that 1 pound, right? But by losing 1 pound in the larger goal of 50, you are by definition doing it. You're in the process of losing 50 pounds. You're not trying to lose 50 pounds, right? So those who do will succeed. Those who try and those who keep saying try don't succeed generally. And I think that's because trying is generally equal to overthinking. And as a reformed, previous obsessive overthinker, overanalyzer, and I've mentioned in the past, 20 years of like drugs and alcohol addiction and eating disorders and all of this stuff that I just was caught up in this maelstrom of like self-sabotage, that all came from overthinking, overanalyzing. Why did I do it? Trying to always find an answer. And it's like, sometimes finding an answer is good, right? If it's there and if it helps you progress. But sometimes finding an answer is unnecessary. Sometimes you just got to kind of pick up and keep going. So if you're trying, ask yourself, am I overthinking on this thing? And I think that in this is a fine line, but like planning to do something is necessary, right? You should have a thought out path of execution, even if that path changes, which most likely it will, because we go and like, here's the thing. All of us as adults, we're all just kind of figuring this shit out, right? When you're a kid, you can look up to older kids or adults for answers. When we're all adults, unless you have somebody that's already at the place you're trying to go, you're kind of figuring things out as you go. So that plan is going to change, but planning is necessary to progress in that goal. Thinking without like putting action behind the thinking breeds inaction, because all you're doing is thinking, right? You're not taking action. And we can get caught up in the whole thing of, thinking about something and feeling good from that thinking, when it's like, but you're not actually doing. You're thinking and you're trying, you're not doing. And I think, the two things that came to mind when I was as far as pop culture, when I was putting this podcast together, the slideshow together rather, to do this podcast, were Yoda, which we've already covered, but then Nike's kind of cliche slogan. But oftentimes things become cliche because they're tried and true and there's a lot of truth behind them. So Nike's cliche slogan, right? Just do it. I mean, that really, if you want to summarize this whole thing, that's what this podcast comes down to, is just doing it. Because the process of thinking and collecting more and more thoughts and more material, and Lord knows we live in an age of overabundance of information. But there's a really good book called Level Up Your Life by a guy named Steve Kamb. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. So Level Up Your Life by Steve Kamb, Kamb. And in that book, he refers to the kind of incessant collecting of information as collecting underpants. So that's something that Holly, as comical as it sounds, that's something that Holly and I will talk about, where if we're looking at doing something new for the business or personal growth, right? I've mentioned in some of the other podcasts that we're like into computer coding and cryptocurrencies and investing and things like that, which they may not necessarily come into play with this podcast, but it's still things that we're interested in for personal growth, for personal development. And if we get to the point where one of us is collecting like 18 different personalities to follow on cryptocurrency, it's like, you're probably collecting underpants. You just need like one or two resources. So ask yourself, in your life, are you collecting underpants, right? And I love that terminology, but are you collecting underpants in the process of trying to do the thing that you're trying to do? And so Holly has been talking about wanting to write more, and she has started it. But of course, prior, and I hope she doesn't mind that I'm putting her on blast with this, but prior to starting the actual process of just 10 minutes every morning, just write, just open up a Google Doc and just start typing. she was like looking up, well, what should I write about and how do I write? And let me find writing prompts and maybe I can find this person who would help me write a blog and all that. And I told her, I was like, 2 words, just start. Stop overthinking, stop collecting underpants, just start. So that's, I think, a very powerful 2-word. Following up on that, just start. Like, one of the things that I think causes us to overthink things is that we want things to be just right. We keep collecting underpants again to make conditions perfect before we start. And I know in the past, I've definitely been guilty of that. And it wasn't until I kind of put together this like, oh, like nothing is ever perfect. Like forget perfect, nothing is ever perfect. And another thing like that really helped me, because it wasn't until I put these together that I really just started taking action, right or wrong, I started taking action. I forgot perfect because again, like nothing is ever perfect. You'll always find ways to tweak things and make it a little better, a little better, a little better. So forget perfect. The other thing is like, as human beings, and hear me on this, this might be the most, I think, powerful sentence in this entire episode. As human beings, every single one of us, we are all flawed. We are all perfectly imperfect, right? And just let that sink in. Like, we're so worried about hiding our flaws from the world. We're so worried about fixing our flaws. We're so worried about presenting this perfect image on social media or to our loved ones or to the people we don't even know at the damn grocery store. And if we stop and think like, hey, the thing that makes us all perfect is that we are all imperfect. We're all broken in some way, shape, and form, right? Some more than others, some less than others, but like we're all broken. We all have, levels of a monster inside of our head that's our worst critic, right? We all tear ourselves down. Stop trying to pursue perfection and just embrace your imperfection. And that makes it a lot easier to stop collecting those underpants, because when you're constantly collecting resources and people to follow and podcasts to listen to and books to read, just looking for that magical phrase or that magical system or that magical supplement or whatever it is that's going to be the thing, you become frozen by analysis paralysis, right? You're constantly looking for the next best thing that's going to help you succeed. And in looking, you're not doing. It really is this simple. Like it can be, and some people might be like, well, easy for you to say, but it's not. Like, just stop overthinking, stop trying, like just do. Because the thing about action, whether it's the right action for you at the time or the wrong action for you at the time, both of those feel great, because the right action obviously leads you to the next step and you're like, hey, I did the right thing. And if it's the wrong action, it's still by way of a lesson of, oh, that was the wrong thing to do. It still leads you to the next right step, right? So whether that action is right or wrong, they both feel great because they lead to progress. Whereas trying, right, you're kind of dead in the water. So if you take a wrong action, all you're going to do is basically assess the action. Okay, where did I screw up? What was wrong with it, right? And again, you don't overthink it. You just kind of give it a couple minutes of thought. You assess it, you correct it, excuse me, and then you take action again, and you kind of review that and repeat that process. One thing I think that is important here too is to replace the vocabulary. And I'm kind of wondering, and I'll listen back through this and edit if I need to, but I'm kind of wondering if I've just out of habit said, trying, when equating that to a positive thing, because I want trying to be a negative in your head. Trying, again, like eliminate the word try from your vocabulary. So I think it's important. Your vocabulary is an important thing. I think one of the best habits that people can get in the habit of is, coming up with new words, learning new words. If you're reading a book, which is another great habit, but if you're reading a book and you come across a word you don't know, do you just skip it or do you look it up, right? And do you just look it up and kind of get a feel for it? Or do you like maybe put it into a list and you say, hey, I want to work that into my own vocabulary? Words and better words give us nuance in our vocabulary. So someone may say, I'm trying to do this thing. And what they mean is like, I'm giving an effort to this thing, right? Or I'm attempting to do this thing. They may not mean like I'm frozen in inaction, but so I think it's important to replace words and give you some better words. So just as a brief aside, like some words that kind of came to mind when I'm trying to get you to eliminate try from your vocabulary, some of these, and see if any of these hit home, but like giving effort, right? I mean, that's kind of, most of these are going to be self-explanatory, but giving effort, again, planning, right? I'm planning on this thing and I'm going to take action on it soon. I'm attempting to do this thing, which I'm actually taking action and I'm attempting it right now. Persevering, right? Because sometimes we're doing the thing and maybe we're not making the progress like we want, but we're being persistent and we're persevering in that action. Doing, right? Plain and simple. I'm doing instead of trying. I'm taking action instead of trying. I'm proceeding instead of trying. I'm going for it instead of trying. I'm employing consistency, right? I'm not giving up. I'm not just trying. I'm being consistent in my actions. I'm eliminating things. So I took the wrong action. I figured out why. I eliminated that thing. I eliminated distractions. I eliminated trying from my vocabulary. Reviewing. I took the wrong action. I'm reviewing why that action was the wrong thing and assessing. I'm assessing the actions I took that were incorrect. I'm not assessing why I'm trying because I should be pointing this all out to you now, but like I'm reviewing and assessing the action that I took because I took an action I didn't try and I figured out why that action didn't work, or at least I figured out why I think that action didn't work and I'm going to try it this way next time. And then I'm going to review and assess that. And ultimately starting, right? Just starting. The final thing here on this episode, taking action. So what can you do outside of like, going out there with a head of steam? Great. But like, what can you do right now, real time? Every one of these episodes, I want to go over the principles, and then I want to give you like actions, like actionable steps to employ what we're doing. So what can you do to take action? I want you to think about right now, and pause the podcast if you need to, but I want you to think about what things are you trying to do? And most likely they're going to be things that like you haven't just been trying to do them for a day or a week. They're probably things that you've been trying to do for months, maybe years, right? Like certainly at least weeks, but you've been trying to do those for a while. I've been trying to lose weight. I've been trying to eat better. I've been trying to save more money. I've been trying to be more positive, whatever it might be. So what are your try-tos? And I want you to choose some of those things. I want you to choose them, whether they're big or small. I want you to choose them and just select one or two of them. Again, don't try too hard, right? Like just what are your try-tos? Pick one or two of them that are the highest priority to you that you want to do now. Again, do now. What are those things? And whether they're big or small, I want you to think about how am I going to break those up into one bite at a time. So in the past episodes, I've talked about, you're going to lose 50 pounds in whatever it was, I think 6 months. So that's 25 pounds in 3 months. I think that worked out to like 8 pounds in a month. That works out to 2 pounds a week, right? So break those things down into bite-sized chunks. Again, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So whether it's a big thing or a small thing, right? A grown elephant or a baby elephant, I guess, in this analogy, but like the thing that you're trying to do is break it into actionable steps. So think about it one bite at a time. And as you're breaking it into that one bite at a time, now turning it into an immediate action. What's something you can do today? Today, not next Monday, not the first of next month, not I used to even be a person who was like a numbers person, right? It was like, oh, well, 22 is my favorite number and it's the 16th of the month. So we'll start on the 22nd of the month. Like, what the hell? Like I want to go back and bitch slap like past me. So take immediate action. That's one of the best things you can do. If you read a book and that book really resonates with you, what's one thing you can immediately employ from that book? So immediate action from this. Now, another thing that's huge with this is visually track your efforts, right? So the 0-day challenge that Holly and I are doing, we visually track our efforts in the Slack app. We each have a channel where we go through our, like my 12 and her 9, we go through our tasks every day and we can scroll through and look at not only our before and after pictures that we've been taking in the process, but all of these things that you knock out in the process of a day. And when I go to bed and I'm putting that 12th thing in there and I'm saying, boom, got the date done, like it just feels good to be getting those things done. So whether you're tracking it in an app, whether you're tracking it on a calendar, whether you're putting like a penny in a jar for every time you take an action, give yourself some sort of visual representation for tracking that, because that's going to be huge to keep that motivation going. Another thing to really point out here is to be patient, because you have to be consistent, right? So the bigger goal is obviously you have to be more patient and you have to be consistent for a longer period of time. But like big or small, you need to be patient with your goals. You need to take consistent action, and you need to understand that like it's going to be a long haul and a consistent effort. And ultimately, I'll leave you with this. If you fall, again, we're all perfectly imperfect, right? So if you fall, you're human. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up, and don't let one day of inaction, one day of trying, don't let that become a second day, because when it becomes a second day, now you're creating another cycle. You're creating a cycle of trying. You're creating a cycle of inaction. So if you fall, if you screw up, if you have a day where you don't do what you want to do, it's okay. You're a human. Stand up, get back up, dust yourself off, and keep going. That's the only way you're going to get through this, is taking action, being consistent, and measuring your results, and visually seeing what you're doing. So that's it for episode number 4, guys. Later today, I'm going to be doing episode number 5, a Q&A session finally coming with my buddy Joe, the Q-Roo. And then this weekend, I'll be doing a couple more. I'm going to do another solo episode, and Holly and I are going to be doing our origin story. So you will be hearing all of those very soon. But that is it for episode number 4. Try is a 4-letter word. Action always wins out. Don't forget that. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. Again, if this podcast gave you anything, please share, subscribe, spread the good word. Find me on Facebook, Andy Frisch, Nutrient Official, Holly Frisch, Facebook, Instagram. That's where we're Andy Frisch, Holly Frisch, and Nutrient Official on both of those. YouTube, Andy Frisch, and obviously you're listening to this some way, shape, and form. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention, and I will see you on the next episode, guys. Go be awesome. Have a fantastic day. Thanks for listening. Bye.